Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's Catania Alvin speaking from London, 2.5 miles from thereabouts, the City of London. I've got the Restored Republic here by Judy Byington. This is the 7th of January. So she talks about the plan was to restore the original constitution and save the failing economy from the cabal fiat US dollar through a revaluation of the gold asset-backed US note via a global currency reset. Now let me thank Annette Cividange for the National Emergency Act of War, that symbol. I've used hers, so thank her for that. Now, in 2019, the new quantum financial system that would make that happen was said to be fully operational, transparent, and impenetrable. B is RV and GCR, that's the Global Currency Reset. Zimbabwe Ambassador Brian A. Nichols was at a meeting with Trump at the White House, January the 5th. Q posts on January the 5th, executive order active. 2 days ahead of schedule, January the 6th, Trump at Camp David for meetings with staff on border security. January the 6th, 2019, Q posts a hashtag 4614558. The clock is ticking. Follow the watch. And then in brackets, picture of a watch set at 3:15. Q seemed to indicate that Trump would make major announcements on national security, perhaps martial law at 3:15, which is why I've got this President's United Seal up there. Her C is indictments. Arrests of cabal members was essential for the RV, that means revaluation, stroke GCR, global currency reset, to happen. And the reason why Trump has faced several assassination attempts and resistance by a Congress and press entrenched in the illegal fiat money system, Trump was taken down. Since Trump took office, over 71,000 sealed indictments against members of the press, Hollywood, but mainly political elites, in brackets, led by the Clintons. Who else do you think? Well, otherwise you could say Obama, have been filed in federal courts across the nation. The serving of indictments and subsequent arrests were thought to be ongoing since at least when President Bush, Clinton, and Obama were believed to serve their indictments at Bush's funeral on December the 5th, 2018. So her next point is D, indictment charges. These were believed to include, you need to sit down for this, treason, election fraud, and political elite roles in 9/11, the Fukushima nuclear explosion, Benghazi massacre, mass murder in Haiti and elsewhere, gun and drug running, human trafficking, child exploitation, kidnapping, murder, and harvesting victims' organs for monetary gain, blackmail for certain votes on political issues, though through recording of pedophilia parties where children were raped, tortured, murdered. Oh, utterly shocking, difficult to read it. Selling US uranium resources in Russia in exchange for bribes, money laundering, and misappropriation of and confiscation of US taxpayers' money through use of the illegal and privately owned Federal Reserve, IRS, US Corporation, City of London, and Holy See. Those are the 3 city-states that are not part of the countries that they reside in, plus not implementing the freedom from debt called GSARA law, signed into law by the US Supreme Court and President Bill Clinton, may I add, at gunpoint. Bill Clinton's court proceedings would be handled by state federal courts, international courts, and military tribunals. There's a link there. I'm going to go on reading. IRS, Federal Reserve. On December the 13th, 1913, the cabal instigated the Federal Reserve Act and formally took over our monetary system. Let me add here is that the Bank of England was set up in 1694, and that was the last of the Vatican banks at that time. The previous Vatican banks were all in Europe, and it was out of the Bank of England that then got taken over by the Rothschilds after the Battle of Waterloo, and that created, or should I say, the Federal Reserve was created in a way out of that Bank of England. So the cabal instigated the Federal Reserve Act and formally took over our monetary system. Although private individuals had been in control of it since the 1600s, that is 1694 actually, so it's closer to the 1700s, the Federal Reserve Act was never approved by Congress, and the IRS charter ran out in 2012 on December 2018. Q indicates that the cabal-owned IRS and Federal Reserve system would be taken down by January. Both privately owned Federal Reserve and IRS were determined to be acting illegally when the Supreme Court passed the GITMO law, which is signed into law by President Clinton. Now, NESARA, later known as GESARA, meaning Global Economic Security and Reformation Act, as opposed to national, was the U.S. citizens' freedom from debt ruling by the Supreme Court that resulted from a farmer's lawsuit that had muddled through the courts since 1980s. The case proved that since the 1600s, U.S. taxpayers' dollars had been illegally laundered through what was known by 1871 to 1900s as a privately owned IRS, Federal Reserve and Cabal Corporation of the District of Columbia, City of London and the Holy See, with political elites filling their pockets along with the way. President Clinton had signed off on NESARA/GESARA, though he nor any U.S. president since had implemented the law until Donald Trump, when Trump finally implemented GITMO law, the Federal Reserve and the IRS would officially be defunct. So that's still to be done. Right, martial law. Last December, the U.S. military announced that after Christmas it may be involved in temporary emergency martial law. At a January the 4th press conference, President Trump said, "I'm considering declaring a national emergency to fund the wall." President Trump already had the power to declare martial law. On March the 6th, 2018, Trump announced, in accordance with Section 202D of the National Emergency Act 50 U.S.C. 1622D, I am continuing for 1 year of national emergency declared in Executive Order 13288. Q posts hashtag 4614558 on January the 5th, indicated that Trump may declare martial law from Camp David on Sunday, January the 6th, around the 3 p.m. EST. He was expected to use the presidential emergency broadcast system through cell phone and email and regular media outlet notification. Military tribunals. There were over 71,000 indictments filed in federal courts last year, and they were about to be unsealed and acted upon. The indictments would be handled by state federal courts, international court, or litigated through military tribunals. The U.S. government closed doors on December the 22nd with no end in sight that would, while at the same time several political elites, including former U.S. President Bush, Clinton and Obama, went missing. At least 2 FEMA prison barges have arrived at GITMO in preparation for military tribunals scheduled to begin in January. Well, there's also a section on stock market. I'll put the link below, then you can look at it yourself. Okay, God bless, love and light to all. Tanya Alvin signing out. Bye-bye. Postscript here. J. Rumored schedule. On January the 3rd, political elites returned to Washington, even though at least a third of Congress faced arrest, and government continued its 3rd week of shutdown with no end in sight, an exposure of election fraud that would nullify their 2016 and 2018 elections. It was rumored that the RV, the GCR, would go at the same time as martial law was declared. At a January the 4th press conference, President Trump announced, "I'm considering declaring a national emergency to fund the wall." Late January, Tier 5 Joe Public would start in late January. Now this is the payments out that the announcement of GSARA